There we go. So welcome back, everybody. This is day 2 of this Canadian Intercollegiate exhibition. Again, today I'm your host, Jennifer, and we are shaping up for some really cool events today. So, of course, starting off is our Bring Your Parents to School panel, and then we have Path to Pro after, and then our 2 tournaments, the finalization of our Overwatch 2 tournament, and then the start of our not League of Legends. What is League of Legends? League of Legends tournament. But anyways, time to hop straight into our panel. So with me today, I have 5 amazing guests, and I will get them to each introduce themselves and then answer our general question of the year, which is, what is your favorite video game of all time?
So my name is Alex Kiiffner. I am at Humber College right now. I work as on-air talent and in production. I also work for the Ontario School Esports Association in a similar role where I've had the chance to put on some events for high school, middle school aged kids, and recently elementary school with some things with a Minecraft tournament we just did. And I guess for my favorite game of all time, favorite competitive game of all time, sorry, Bernard, I gotta have to say Melee, steal your thunder a little bit here. And then probably favorite non-competitive game of all time would be Grim Fandango. I think that's my favorite single-player game.
Hi, everyone. Carol Meissner here. I'm an Ontario College prof who teaches esports and, dare I say it, some accounting as well. I'm an advocate for the student-run eSport Club. We offer work-integrated learning to students at the college. I'm part of eSport Canada's board and executive committees. And most important, I'm the parent of 2 sons who benefited from esports. One took the collegiate route, semi-pro, and the other played professionally in a global esports league. And I can attest to all the good things that esports did to them. And I will have to admit, you put me on the spot. I don't play video games. So I don't have a favorite to throw in the match. I am the soccer mom who never played soccer, or the baseball parent that's helping out with everything, but never
Okay.
played. So sorry about that.
Do you watch any? Or have you watched any, I guess?
I watched my son's games for years. So I've got Counter-Strike and then Valorant, and then the other one was Overwatch. So I've watched a lot of those.
Okay, awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shaye Ruecker. I am the president of the Saskatchewan Esports Association. We're a nonprofit out here in the province of Saskatchewan trying to promote the esports industry in our own little neck of the woods of Canada. I guess my favorite game, I don't know if we're doing competitive and not competitive, but Bloodborne would be not competitive. And competitive one, I used to play a lot of WoW. Back when they actually had tournaments running arenas and things like that.
Awesome. Yep. Go for it, Bernard.
Can you hear me? Hi, everyone.
Good.
Before I start, I gotta say shout out to Carol for being honest about and not just throwing a random game into the void. That's sick. My name is Bernard Mafei. I'm the senior administrator for esports at Humber College across all their campuses. I'm also a program director for a nonprofit called Just Be Graphic. So I help with arts-based education, including STEAM and gaming in the K-12 space and mostly in Ontario. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Favorite game, because Alex said Super Smash Bros. Melee, that's what I always say because I used to compete. I'll provide another one. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Game is so good. Sonic is, yeah, that was a childhood homie of mine. So
I think they have that on Steam now.
they definitely do. I can speak directly to that.
All right, and then our last but not least panelist of the day.
Hi, everyone. My name's Chris. Most people know me in esports by Lama. I am currently a teacher, professor at Conestoga College in the audience development and strategy side on the esports side. Developed a few courses for multiple colleges across Canada, from Keano, Algoma University, and of course Conestoga. Previously CEO of Parabellum Esports, so I've had my space with some professionals and working with young members of our community as well, and I'm excited to talk about Bring Your Parents to School. Favorite competitive game would be Rocket League. Favorite non-competitive game would be, I'm going to throw it way back to N64 Majora's Mask.
Oh, that is a good one. Okay, so thank you all for the introductions. We will jump straight into our questions. And our first one of the day are, I guess since a lot of you deal with university students, whether they're first years or fourth years, what are some of the trends you're seeing with the people you're kind of going from high school to university and that age category, kind of the young adult, late teens?
I can jump in right away. One of the things that I've noticed is anyone on the university level, and like I think anyone who's been a student can attest, there's not a whole lot of funds going around. That's why you end up eating ramen for the majority of your nutrition. So one thing that's popped up, we didn't have it as kids, is the growth of free to play games and games with a low barrier to entry from a financial standpoint. I think we've gotten to the point where a lot of these games don't need super powerhouse PCs and anything that is esports related. They're really trying to make it accessible that way. But free to play is very important for getting things in school to make sure everyone gets a chance.
Mhm.
Say to echo a little bit on that too is just from some of my students that were first year this year, a lot of them are talking about mobile gaming in particular. So kind of the same thing when it comes to accessibility, free to play on the mobile side, but also something that they've got around them all the time. Lots of people playing, Call of Duty Mobile or even PUBG Mobile, where that is available, and kind of connecting through there, and then obviously just communicating with your peers through Discord and other socials.
Mhm, mhm,
I'd say a thing that's changing at our school, we don't have as much of a competitive focus. We're a very community type of school. And I think a great thing that a lot of schools are now offering is facilities to play on campus. They can range from, the massive ones with competition on. We just have a couple of devices and set up some great times for people to build that community. So I think that's a really important part of that transition from high school to collegiate world, is developing a community and developing friends. And I think there's a role in these facilities in helping that out.
mhm.
Community
sure.
is definitely a big one. On that note, an interesting thing that I recently learned is that how big Minecraft even competitions can be, where you wouldn't traditionally think of Minecraft as an esport. I sort of touched on it earlier. OC recently did Minecraft finals, basically, and sort of that using esports as a community builder, where you're, instead of competing, well, it's a competition, but instead of just a competition, you're working to build something in a sort of non-traditional aspect of things. And just to touch on the school integration too, is you see places like Microsoft has Minecraft Educational Edition. So they're sort of integrating themselves into the school environment, which also provides accessibility because the school provides the game. And actually, in many cases, the students were there on school provided hardware as well, which is even better. So you can play it on a Chromebook now, which I find kind of incredible, because those things are they're serviceable. We'll put it that way.
If I can jump
Yeah.
in on the end, you can. Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
go for
Is
it.
that
Go
okay?
for it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that one thing is, as in the post-secondary environment, we have an eye on what's happening in the K-12 space always, because that's where our students come from. And I think one trend that's makes me hopeful is that I see younger students and younger kids using games as not just a place to escape from the realities of their day-to-day, but to like connect with each other. And I think that's, to go back to an earlier point mentioned, like accessibility, things like network and like what you can do on a phone. I think all that's kind of culminated in ways to connect that are just beyond the four corners of the screen. And then we're seeing that in schools, we have more extracurricular programs. What I do in the nonprofit that I work with is do workshops, and we often see tons of signups, and from a lot of girls too. I recently did Pump for Post-Secondary, I think Alex was there for that actually, and that was a cohort of kids doing an esports and gaming workshop. They had to sign up on their own, and one of the 2 cohorts we did was like just 40 girls, just straight up, and that wasn't, that wasn't something that we planned to be that way, and it's obviously amazing to see. So I think we're seeing them kind of step out of previous interpretations of what gaming and esports can be, and maybe into something a bit more diverse and kind of open for everybody. And that I think is the goal, and why we work in schools to begin with.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's really cool to see gaming really open up to younger ages and be more accepted and kind of being talked about in a positive light a lot more. That being said, there are still some individuals who can be a little bit wary, especially when it comes to their children and exposing them to certain games, certain communities. So I guess one of the questions a lot of parents will have is kind of how can they, as parents, both support their kids in getting involved with the benefits of gaming and esports and the different routes, but also kind of making sure that they are safe and that they are, um, for lack of a better word, like remain healthy in that environment and they're able to thrive.
If I'm allowed to double up, I'll go again on this one. My background is I used to be a competitive gamer. Super Smash Bros. Melee was a title I played for 15 plus years, and I traveled all around the world. And I was sponsored with a Canadian jersey on my chest. And I never told my parents. That was the big one, right? So they thought I was at work or at a friend's house, just a few streets away, but actually I was in New York. Haha, at 17 years old. I think the reason I did that, and why they slowly came to understand and fully support me later, is because it mattered to me. It was a huge part of my life, and the people that I now know as friends, as close friends, I met back then. So I think if I could go back in time and talk to my parents, I would say, it's not about supervision. It's about understanding what they love and supporting that passion. That's one thing. And I think the ability, like esports, has the ability to be a bridge between generations. And the same way that music was way back in the day when that was kind of new and surprising for some people. So I think if we try to encourage parents to look at it that way, then maybe we have a better outcome. But yeah, that's I think supervision and it's bad thing we have to monitor very closely is not so much it, but we have to educate parents as well with like the online safety and things like that. So it has to be something you do hand in hand with respect.
I think it depends on which age group you're talking about. Because when we're dealing with, as soon as we say a parent, well, your parent can be 4 years old and your parent could, of a 17-year-old. So I think when they're super young, things like parental controls and the parent sitting with the child and playing with them, monitoring that there's nothing coming through on chat, there's no open chat, they don't play with people they don't know when they're very young, sets a little bit of a foundation to get them going on. Then when you get them a little bit older and they start playing on their own and with friends online, there really is about that. I think you really nailed it there, Bernard, the communication. You have to have those regular check-ins with young people to say, oh, so what were your friends doing? What did they say? How did they say it? Why was that a problem for you? So help them learn to work through it so that by the time they're 17 and say, hey, I've got a chance to go play, the parents have done the heavy lifting of learning what is esports, doing their research. It's a big learning curve. So parents should start early and have that communication that you're talking about so that we don't run into those situations when they're later and they start either hiding behaviors or not being able to handle some of the things that start coming on. Like if a parent doesn't know the difference between grinding and tilting, and those words are flashed around the house, they're missing on some very, very important clues that maybe tilting is a bad thing. And they need to have a conversation as a parent to help their young person work through all of that. So it's not, I agree with you, it's not supervision. It is that communication that's really key to me.
One of the things that got me into working with esports is just so many parents reaching out and saying like, hey, what is this? Like, that's the first question is like, what is this? I heard there's money involved. They're spending a lot of time on there. All their friends are on there. And these are all the appropriate things that you need to do is you need to educate yourself. You need to start asking questions, get involved, and really make sure that you are having a basic understanding first of exactly what esports is, what gaming are, even before you get into like nomenclature, like you're talking about, Carol, right? Things start with, okay, well, what is a shooter? What is a support role? What is my kid doing as part of a group? And how is this in relation to things I do understand, which is like traditional sports or any type of competitive stuff that they might have done in other types of school situations. That's what I always find is the best like framework to start that conversation on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I suppose some of that comes too from, it's the right word, legitimizing gaming or esports as an institution as well. And I think that's why organizations like these provincial organizations that we're seeing, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Ontario, um, and respecting it enough to go out and seek that knowledge and not just passively dismiss it. I recently did our year-end interviews for our organization here at Humber. And one of the questions we would always ask the players was, "What does your family think of you competing in esports?" And unfortunately, that was the constant thoroughfare, and all that was the dismissal of it as a hobby. Bernard talked about the same sort of thing. Um, so giving it the proper respect and treating it like it is any other extracurricular activity. And that, Carol, the questions you were asking, that sound like questions my parents would have asked about any other sport or anything I would have competed in. But unfortunately, you don't always get that with gaming. So it's relatively the same institution, if you ask me. It's just not always seen that way.
We need Carol to write the handbook on parents in the pro space for sure.
Hold it. You just did the pitch for me then, because the Rutledge Handbook of Esports is coming out, and I did a chapter, Esports, Parental, Parent, and Family Support. So yes,
Perfect. There it is.
it's coming out this year.
I can definitely speak to, having these conversations with some parents too. I had the pleasure or maybe displeasure of moving, 5 18-year-olds into a house in Las Vegas 2 years ago to play in the Rainbow Six Pro League. And the week we moved all the kids in, we brought the parents or invited the parents along to, have these conversations and help with the transition, which some of them did struggle with because still they didn't understand that their child was going to be coming into a professional league, making a salary, living out of the house to play video games. So my big thing, and always, we had players from the age of 14 signed to our team, all the way up to 25, the end of a career, where we would work on educating and making sure the parents were understanding of the whole program. We had a mental performance coach on our team as well, making sure that we would work on the burnout and all the the change that they were going to be having when they moved. But we at least put some work on the back end to make sure the parents understood. But over time, hopefully the parents become like your Carols who have been through it and are able to educate others as time comes on, and we can change this conversation to something else that needs to be talked about in the future as well.
Mhm. Yeah, those are all really, really good answers. And I can say, like, from me being probably in that era where my parents didn't agree with video games, they're starting to open up. They're starting to see where all of this is because they see everyone in the scene. And it's something I think a lot of university people can, and even high school now, can kind of connect with, and just kind of getting their parents over that initial hump and that fear and all of that, and treating it like a soccer team or like a football team, because a lot of the principles are pretty similar. Um, but for parents to get educated, they need places to go. So I guess other than Carol's book, or actually, Carol, if you want to speak on your book a little bit, um, what are kind of the places, people, and orgs that parents can maybe reach out to learn a little bit more? And as we will start with Carol, if that's
Sure.
all right with you.
It's just a chapter. It's just a chapter. But there's a couple of really good orgs out there. Internet Matters has an esports guide for parents. That's a very good report. There's COPE, which is a coalition of parents in esports. They have a number of resources that are publicly posted. And I'd say the British Esports Association would round up my top 3, where the British Esports Association has guides, to your points earlier that many of you were making about age appropriate games. What's a shooter? What's what does a type of game look like? There's an actual guide on the British Esports Association website that shows you what the images are like on the screen before you let your child play it. Gives you the age ratings for all of the games. I mean, we have age ratings on our boxes, or not, we don't have boxes anymore, but on the screens when you download the games. But so those are a start, but you still don't get a complete sense of it. So that guide is particularly helpful. So those are my top three.
There's also a guide on the osea.gg/resources. There's a whole bunch of different guides for schools and for parents, along with all the games that are associated. So it's just a quick PDF that you can pop up on that website, and it gives a little bit of guidance. I think it's a 2 or 3 page report for parents to review and go through. And they can always reach out to the info on that if they have any questions. Concerns. There's an FAQ on there as well. All of the information you need. I think that's good for that.
One of the things that we're trying to do as an organization, and a lot of the interprovincial organizations, even eSport Canada, they're trying to get in front of, we can call them normies, I guess, anyone that would have a glancing interest in esports as an industry or just as like a phenomenon that's happening. And that's been doing wonders when I can get in front of people on TV or doing talks. Things like this are a little more of a closed circuit, right? Because this is people within the industry. But if we reach out to a radio station that has never talked about esports, and we could reach that crowd that's there and then point them into any of the directions that we're talking about, it's a matter of being able to set that conversation up for them to work towards too. That's super effective in all the other organizations that we kind of partner with. They're rock stars at doing that too.
Yeah, those are all some really good organizations, and I hope people were taking their notes down for that. Yeah, I think I'll also add that I think a lot of post-secondary educators are really good resources as well, because they live, breathe, eat, sleep, not only for their job, but usually it's their hobby as well. And our community is pretty willing to help out, I would say. I think we're all pretty welcoming. But I actually got a DM this time instead of in the chat. And this person asked to be anonymous, but they say, I am 16 and my parents think I'm playing too much video games, but I'm maintaining an A average about 90%, and I go work out 3 times a week. How do I tell them that they're wrong?
So here's a question for you, and I've been in that same situation. You have to kind of reflect too and wonder, are you playing too many video games and what that level is? Because you might think that you're putting in as much effort as you can to try to start competing. Maybe that's too much. Maybe you're not focusing on what you should be in terms of gaming itself. Now, on the other side of it too, there's a different understanding of exactly how much gaming is there. But honestly, if your parents are concerned about that, they've brought that up, that warrants a conversation. That's where you could talk to them and figure out what means to you to play too many video games and what it means to them to play too many video games. You have had a conversation opportunity open up for you. Take advantage of it.
If I can hop in, I think this is like a success story in the making. I mean, if you're getting all A's, or it's already a success story, I should say. If you're getting all A's and you're hitting these other objectives that your parents have maybe laid out for you, and you're playing games at the same time, I'm like, wow, you can definitely do a lot. So I'd say the first thing is recognize that you're really talented. You're able to juggle many things, and that you're skilled at these things because you're doing them all at a high level. As far as the gaming, whether it's casual or competitive, I would also kind of, taking the previous advice you just heard, think about how much you do it. Like, what are your values? How do you want to spend your time? Where does gaming fit into that? And then how do your parents perceive that? And there might be some overlap there. And if there's not, that's where you want to have a conversation about, how would you like me to spend my time as my parents? And if I'm doing those things to par, is it fair to say I can then game a bit? Because like anything, there's balance, right? Even your parents who work, I'm sure, have ways that they'd like to blow off steam. So if this is yours, I think you can communicate it that way. Now, easier said than done. Talking your own parents is definitely not easy. I think that's something even I only surmounted when I was in like my mid 20s, barely. I still go home and I'm like, you want to tiptoe around, but try to stand up for yourself. Like if you believe in what you're doing and you think you're doing it the right way, then honor that and just have a respectful conversation. And I think it should go better than you think. And if you're thinking, what do I lean on in terms of ideas, then the main ones I think is to impress that it's not a solitary activity. The friends that you make, the friends that you have through this stuff, that's a great opportunity. You're not doing it by yourself in your basement, right? Maybe you have friends that you do it with. And the fact that you're also succeeding in all other areas that are of note. So yeah, I think sounds like you're doing really great. You have it figured out. It's how do you tell them? How do you bring them into a conversation that's comfortable? That's the real question.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, I hope. Oh, sorry. Continue. Go for it, Carol.
I was just going to say, I think you sort of touched on it before. It depends on what you're playing. Because if you're playing 40 different games and you're on, 80, 100 hours a week on a bunch of random things, that's not sort of the breadth of interest. If you're at the age and stage where you're trying to think about going competitive, then it has to be, is this mindless play? Is there actual practice time? So perhaps you could break it out. So if you're saying, I'm trying to develop a team, we have specific practice times, we need to go over VODs afterwards, and we have an actual explanation of the time and why it's quality time that's being spent gaming, that may also help frame the argument to the parents. It's not just, I like to push buttons. It's, I have a goal, because definitely seems goal oriented. Like you say, great grades, exercise, trying to find the balance already. But maybe that'll help in the explanation, because as a parent, I'd like to know, what are you going to plan to get out of this? And the last point then is, what do you get out of it, is also try to focus on the transferable skills. Hey, I'm leading my team. I'm organizing 12 people to get a match together and practice, and somebody's streaming, and I've got somebody doing this. Like, explain the breadth of it. If all you can say is, I'm on, and I don't want to pick on any game, I'm on X casual game, and I'm just hanging out on here playing all alone, and I'm fine all alone, that's a very different conversation. So to Bernard's point, there's a lot of social side of things that would be very attractive to parents.
One thing that Bernard brought up too, and I love it, is just you identified that obviously this person has talent, and this is something where they're able to get a lot of things done. And the one thing you said, man, is you said goals, right? If they're accomplishing their goals, then that's awesome. So maybe utilize that. If your parents are very goal oriented and trying to help you figure out, okay, how do we determine success in there? Maybe let them know, like, hey, this is what I want to do, these are the career goals that I have in terms of going competitive, this is the level that I need to get at to be able to take that into a post-secondary type situation. There's a lot of cool opportunities for a conversation for you to have and be able to communicate and kind of break that down.
Mhm.
I think everyone nailed it, so I don't have much to say, but if all else fails, download this video and then show it to them.
Yeah, well, they say thank you. That's all very helpful. I will try breaking it down for my parents in non-gamer terms and see if they can go for that. Well, I
You got to
guess,
speak their
yeah.
language.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great
Sharing the
way to
VOD's
do
a great idea too, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Um, but okay, so we will move on to our next question, and this one, Shay, is for you, and anyone can jump in as well. Um, do you know of any like mentorship or coaching programs where like younger individuals can probably seek out just to get a little bit more involved if they don't know how to do it like strictly by themselves?
So a lot of people who are talented at anything, right? Whether it's sports or music or whatever, they love to share that knowledge on people, whether it's an ego basis or it's coming from an altruistic standpoint. But there is a wealth of resources available to you at all levels, especially now with the wide world of the internets, where you could join a Discord and you could try to find people to work with you and coach, as well as like all the amazing things all the school esports associations are doing across the country. What I've found is that there's a lot of players who are becoming what I'm calling legacy mentors. So these are people who have aged out of the collegiate play, or they're people that had never gotten the chance to play at a collegiate level because that wasn't available to them. They want nothing more than to see someone from their hometown succeed. And sometimes they will do a call out and say, hey, does anyone want some coaching? You don't have to pay for it. I want to help you out. If you're really good at Tekken, but you need to like work on your defense to get to that next level. Sometimes it's seeking them out. Sometimes it's finding an opportunity for them to just say, hey, I'm here, ask questions. And that's joining discords, that's going out to find these communities. Beyond that though too, there's a lot of things that are popping up across North America. There's a few in Canada too that are like paid mentorship programs, kind of like a basketball camp that you would go to, professional coaches that are there. And if you aren't at the top level, that's not even something I'd really invest into, right? You don't need to have Eddie Vedder teach you guitar when you're just trying to knock out a few chords.
Yeah, and I would say that's pretty true. Like it's very easy to fall into that path of, well, I'm just gonna go pay for the coaching and I'll all of a sudden become the best. But yeah, not always necessary. And I guess this what I was thinking with that sort of depends where you live. But I've also found that a lot of people are very open at locals, and especially in the fighting game community. I've been to a few here in Toronto, and it's just incredible how, Shaye was just saying, people are passionate, they want to share. You have questions, and you're at a local specifically for that event. Oh, forget about it. They'll be more than likely willing to help you out, whether that's just there or ongoing and long term. And schools are great for that as well, with gaming clubs and stuff like that, depending on the level that you're at. But yeah, I would definitely say locals. I found some really, really good connections there.
Let me just build on the schools one. There's a bunch of colleges now and universities that are offering, for example, summer camps that are nice and organized. So from a parent's point of view, yes, you'd have to drive your child to potentially a weekly or to a larger city to try and go to these meetups. They're great, but it's a new experience for a parent who's not familiar with the scene. Maybe we're comfortable with some of these organizations that say, like educational schools that have camps going. There are a number of other camps setting up by other organizations besides, say, colleges and university. But I think that's a really good place to start. That's a bit less of that bridge too far. Because if I had a 14-year-old as a parent come to me and say, yeah, can I have your credit card? I found a guy online and he wants to coach me. Think about that from the perspective of a parent who's never heard of any of this before, and you want my credit card for something online. But would I send a 14-year-old to a camp at the local college where they include not only esports, but other activities? I'm going to buy into it a lot more. And I think that's a really big selling feature of the more organized institutions, is when you can go in and say, yes, get this, we're going to do a physical warm-up before we do it. We're going to go take dodgeball breaks. We're going to build in nutrition breaks that doesn't include a lot of energy drinks in the middle of it. So there's a lot of things parents can do to find something that mimics things in traditional sports they're more comfortable with, to sign their children up for those kinds of things. I say I don't disagree with some of the other ones, but I think they're really difficult for a parent who doesn't have any understanding to quite conceptualize. Yes, I'm going to go send my child on a bus to downtown Toronto to a bunch of people I've never met. The kid's 14 and they'll take care of them. The funny part is that's probably the best thing they could do. But from a parent perspective, that's a little bit far. So my advice there to the parent there, go along with them. These events are a heck of a lot of fun. Even if you don't know what's going on, just bring your kid there, move back, let them excel. But as a parent, start going to these things.
And to learn a lot on the outside too. Of it's not just about the game. There's so many more factors to esports and the gaming space than sitting behind the computer and playing a video game. I, for one, sucked at video games, but it was my way of getting into specific communities and meeting people and getting to where I am today. Really, right? When I started really in the space in, I think, 2017, I had no idea how big this was going to be and what the potential opportunities were. And I come from a marketing and event background, and then led into leading teams and working with young players and meeting parents and educating them through that. So like Carol said, if you don't, sometimes we all need to step out of our comfort zone, learn new things, see what's available. And, these parents are probably going to end up being friends or some way, or get connected, and then they're going to start getting together for specific things too. So this whole thing leads into it's all community development, education, all that. So I think that's really cool. I didn't know there was some of those coming up, so I think everyone needs to look at that.
I just want to drop a thought real quick. I think everybody, it's unfair. You're all taking ideas out of my brain, so it's not fair. But these are great. These are great points. So I think what people can hear now is like there is a path if you want to get mentorship or coaching. And I think the main areas is you could either take your credit card and go on like a site like Mafei, which works but also has its drawbacks. You could go to a summer program that's hosted by a private entity, or sometimes by a school. For example, St. Clair College, they run the at least in Canada, one of the best programs in the country, Saints Gaming. They do summer programs for kids. I've seen images and media of kids coming in and doing some stuff in their space, which is great. So that's an option. And also you get a bit of oversight, right, from the academic side of things. So you can be sure that what you're getting, is probably closer to what you'd want as a parent. But I think the coolest and best way, it's what Alex said. It's exactly what I was thinking about grassroots, because locals, however Wild Westy as some of them can be, they're the perfect environment to bring young gamers. When I was going to my first Smash tournament and I was like 16 years old, I remember seeing 14-year-olds and even 12-year-olds, and they come with their parents sometimes. And I remember me and my friends would say, like, oh, like, haha, like he brought his mom or whatever, right? At first. And then every week they would come, right? Every monthly, every event, the parent would come. And then I remember multiple kids now, because I've been doing it for a long time. Their brother would start playing. I remember playing against a girl at one tournament, and she was the sister of a guy that was first brought by his mom. So I'm like, whoa. And then fast forward now, some of these people are running the largest events in the city, in Toronto or in the country. Some of them are, their whole family still come. I just think that there's a way here to go back to what Carol said, is like bringing your parents and showing them is often such a strong facet too. So that kind of tackles that. Simultaneously, you get a really authentic experience. And you go to these communities where their mandate really is to welcome people. They're not trying to push you away. Actually, they want more numbers. They want you to join the tournaments. They want to help their local community. So I think finding something that's close to you, if there's not, or maybe building one, maybe run an event at a community center and kind of starting that. You can find the people that will mentor you and coach you, the people that have been doing it for longer and perhaps have that experience.
My final point is, don't be afraid to just ask people for help, like you guys have all been saying across the time. People I've asked in the gaming community generally are like the nicest people. But the hardest thing to do in most cases is just go up to somebody and ask them. I've gotten DMs after an event saying, "Hey, Chris, I was too scared to come up to you. You looked busy." And they'll come and ask me afterwards. So ask. Worst case, at that moment, they might say no. Hit me up on LinkedIn or Discord or Twitter or whatever afterwards, and then continue that conversation. And then I think, as everyone said too, there's these online communities that we can invite to Discords and communicate and network through there too. So that's my last piece on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. The esports industry is so big, but also so small on a local basis. And then you just watch people bloom when they get older. They do different things, and in 5 or 10 years, you'll realize, like, oh, now we're coworkers. That's weird. Because I knew you when you were really young, or whatever it may have been. Um, but we've touched on a little bit at the beginning, and there's a full panel on this later down the road. But we talked about today a lot of kind of getting parents acclimated to the competitive scene and esports and all of that. But what are kind of some of the other pathways that are not like pro players that may be available to people who maybe also suck at video games, but can find other talents in other places?
I guess I can speak on maybe some of that. There's so many different roles that we have in this space, right? We when we were running our team, we needed everything from producers like this for our small events that we were hosting, community level events, all the way to project managers and graphic designers. Lots of need for that in the space too. Um, Really, any kind of piece that you would need for a standard business, marketing, um, go on. There's a whole list of it. Um, so just because you're in or not able to maybe compete at the highest level as a gamer, there's still opportunities for you to work with teams. So I'm sure there's a space for anyone in those positions or roles.
You were going on. I think you were probably going to touch on like a few more things, right? But the first one, right? Marketing. And a lot of these things are based around communication. That's the one thing they really don't teach you in school is how to communicate, how to write an email, how to shake a hand. And thankfully, a lot of us had mentors that are able to do that. But communication skills are supposed to be built up in social communities that you might be a part of. And this is a great opportunity to establish those, whether you're doing things through a volunteer basis or as part of a group or as part of your squad that you're playing Valorant with. You are learning communication skills on how to progress, move things forward as a team, how to effectively like make sure everyone's goals are getting accomplished. That is amazing in any type of business.
And I'm going to steal that communication thought because I do commentary. That's what I do for the school and in esports in general. And I love that because broadcasting is such a good way to make it legitimized, if you will. If you look at a stream like the one we're on today and you have graphics and you can sort of equate it to a sports broadcast, right? That's the one that I always go back to. If you can show your parents or you are a parent and you see this and you see a bit more legitimacy behind it, that sort of helps bridge the gap, the one-to-one. And it also teaches, we had for the Minecraft finals, we had student commentators. And it was funny. I'm the collegiate commentator. I walked up to them. I go, hey guys, like, you guys need like some assistance or a hand? They go, no, man, like we did this last year. Like, we're good. We got this. And I was like, okay, you guys go. And they rocked it and they did great. And they got the chance to work in a setting that can be applied to traditional sports, to news, to whatever it might be. And they also got to learn, obviously, communication skills because it is so tough to be sitting in the chair talking for hours on end. You have to learn to express yourself well. You have to learn to speak professionally. And then if you take it even further beyond that, you have the chance to work in a business setting, kind of like Shaye and Chris were talking about, where you have to, like what I'm doing now, you have to go out and make networking and connect. And you can use all of these things to kind of come together and make it a cross-applicable skill.
I wonder how many of those kids you would talk to and if they would be super freaked out if you just told them that they did public speaking in front of multiple people, because that is in essence what it is. And it's the equivalent of just pretend the audience isn't there. And that's something that they can bring to meetings. They can bring to actual talks to do presentations they'll have to give as part of whatever curriculum they're working on. So yeah, like commentating is such a cool thing.
You guys have nailed it. The whole, I guess the academic phrase on that is experiential learning, right? We want to provide those opportunities for students to do things, and the amount of things that need to be done, whether it's event management or broadcasting or any of those fields. You can look at a school and look at the list of the programs and go, oh, look, there's a sports management program. There's an event management program. There's an entrepreneurship program. There's a marketing program. Every one of those has an applicable connection. So a person can go to school for whatever interests them and still have a great connection that they can have a career in esports. Now, I'd be remiss if we didn't do a quick shout out. There are a lot of Canadian institutions with great academic programs related to esports. Want to make sure that if that's an area of interest, you don't need to have a diploma in esports specifically, but it is a great way to get those connections and get that work integrated learning. Schools that don't have those programs still have opportunities. Like at my school, we don't have an esports program, but we do have, with the club, work integrated learning opportunities in all of those fields that you're talking about. So I have people, web design, my social media team, students are getting hired, and we do pay them to do those kinds of things. So a lot of schools offer those kinds of opportunities. So from a parent standpoint, oh, my kid's into esport. Yes, it's got a place in higher ed, not just for careers, but for all of those experiences as well.
A good thought experiment or like model is to look at it like if you're, for both parents and students, it's like, if you're a student, you're like, well, my parents want me to do all these great things. So I challenge you that maybe it's up to you to show them that you're already doing them, and say, look, there's like so many, like we talked about, I think events, but there's also social media management, there's content creation, there's team operations, which is its own thing. We have a health and wellness. We have a program here at Humber where I have 2 kinesiology students taking our players and coaches to the gym to connect performance with personal well-being, or to go for morning runs in the arboretum in this beautiful forest behind the college. Really, if you can think it, it's usually applicable here. And a lot of my shining stars at Humber's program, they actually don't even game. They were introduced to it at an event that we had last year. Let's say they walk up and they go, "Oh, like I'm not only am I not good at games, I don't even play them." I'm like, that doesn't matter. What are you good at? And then we connect what they're good at with the opportunity to develop your skills through esports. And then when I visit any class, so fun story, Alex is a sports management student at Humber. I met him doing a class presentation to sports management students. Now he's an example of what a student can become when they really put their all into it. I think I told them it doesn't matter if you come to esports, your why on your way in doesn't matter so much. Like if you are good at games, let's say, it's more like take what you can out of it, squeeze the most out of it, and then wherever life takes you, it was part of your journey. So I think esports is valuable for so many reasons. And the last thing I'll say is we were really blessed here, even though we don't have an academic program like Carol mentioned, which there are some amazing ones. I'm a graduate actually of a esports academic program. We had 200 students with me build websites and hi-fi mock-ups of applications. So over 8 months, multiple sections were presenting these things to me, and I was like, a lot of these people were not gamers. So I said, okay, do some user research, come out to our events and get to know it. And then now some of them want to work for me. So I think this idea of like, you don't have to have a connection initially. You can develop it, take what you need from it, put it in your toolkit, and now esports has empowered you wherever life takes you.
Mhm. Yes, so those are all really, really good points, and I think that the theme really is to get into esports and get it accepted. It's communication, and then once you're kind of through the gates, then the entire world really opens up, and you can kind of have a playground to figure out what you like, what you want to do, what you're good at, which is something I think is really cool and unique about our industry because we're everything at the same time. Um, but okay, so we are almost at the top of the hour, so we're almost at the end of our panel. Um, any kind of last words, shout outs, anything any of you want to say before we kind of close it up?
I think one of my biggest selling points, and we've hit it on a few other times, is the concept that esports has so many transferable skills. It's like all those other things. It's like sports. It's like event management. It's all of those things. So everything that you're learning in esports, the communication, the just working in teams, all of those great things are very transferable. So a parent shouldn't look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, my child wants to do a career in esports of whatever, and it dooms them to this narrow path." Absolutely not. Everything is transferable, and even my children, both having gone through it, they did well in esports. They had their time in esports, and they've gone on to normal lives after esports. So esports isn't you're not doomed to that pathway. It's a great path of transferable skills. Students really engage in learning in it, and there is something on the other side, which may or may not be esports.
There's a few things that I want to talk about. The main thing is I do hope some parents or some skeptical teachers watch something like this, because this is the way to kind of break through that. Like, I'm old, I'm not young anymore, and I have that opportunity to be able to talk to someone who's a peer of mine and be like, no, calm down. This is actually something you should pay attention to, right? And it's easier for me to talk to someone like that rather than someone talking to the kid about that, because things like this, they're happening more and more, and then that's going to be what the conduit is to making this stuff more accepted. And it has been. I have to answer that question less and less as I go through, and less like legitimizing things like that. And then on the second side of things, um, you have to also relay it to parents as something that they understand. So how many people do you guys know that work with someone that they played hockey with growing up, and this is a community that they were involved in that permeates through their entire life, because we all had these shared childhood experiences. We all had these things that bound us together. And whether it's a sport, or we played music in a band together, or skateboarded, did whatever, right? Like, this is all things that shape us into who we are and make us into the people that we move forward. Why can't esports be that exact same thing?
My final thought is, this is directed to any students that are listening. If you're a young person and you're gaming, and the theme of this is bring your parents to school, I believe that you have a responsibility to be the bridge, actually. And if you're already doing these things, and what we're saying is that you definitely are picking up many skills doing it. If you can identify that within yourself and then persuade the non-believers, dispel the ignorance, even though it's challenging, it's because I mean, my parents were ignorant to it, right? And then on my 1-year anniversary, my parents came to 500-person gathering and said we were wrong. Actually, now he's working at one of the biggest schools in the country, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there has to be a way for you to take what you know and believe in your heart and bring it to the people who may not see it. And I think the connection there is, maybe you spend time with them watching stuff, and now you're spending time together. Or maybe it's that you show them, look at all these cool things I created. So it's the difference between consumption and creating. Once you can speak your parents' language, and they can see the magic in what you do, I think the rest is really easy. But the responsibility is on you, and nobody will tell you this. Nobody tapped me on the shoulder and told me this, is that you're the one doing it. So I think, far be it from them to identify that. Maybe they never got the opportunity to, and you're kind of the window into this world. So I would say that outlook and putting the responsibility on yourselves, as challenging as it is going to be really transformative for not just your lives, but for your relationships with your parents.
And use all the resources that are available online now. We've got so many different associations that are available, that are building something out with industry professionals, not just people who wanted to start a program. eSport Canada, OC, whoever it may be. These people have been, we've all been working in the trenches for so long to legitimize this. And that's the word that's been said, I don't even know how many times in this panel, is legitimacy, right? So we've been putting the work in collectively to make sure that we can work on this. And like, the education of parents in this space is so important. And like Bernard said, like, you are the key to opening that door. So have these hard conversations, use this VOD as an example if you need to, and then reach out to the people who are available through these associations. And I think, as I said before, 5 years from now, we won't be having the same conversation over and over about this. And these resources are going to be available. And read Carol's chapter when it comes out, because I will. I don't even have kids.
All right. Well, that kind of brings us to the end. That hour went by pretty quickly. So thank you to you all, Alex, Carol, Shaye, Bernard, and Chris, for joining us for the last hour and speaking a bit about kind of what's going on with parents and how we can they can get involved, and kind of the entire breadth of the industry. So thank you for your time, and thank you for the audience for watching. And also, one more thank you to our lovely sponsors for CIE 2024. Without BMO and TELUS, we would not be able to put this on, as well as thank you to all of the volunteers, especially production staff who has helped put this together. And yeah, so we will be taking a short break and be back in about a half hour with our next panel, which is called Path to Pro. And that will have Myra Davis, Chloe Wong, and Riley Orbit Burke on that for, in a half hour from now. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.